Hello and welcome to Chapter 9. We are looking at small group things this week, which I think is fascinating because you have a small group that you have to work with. And what we're going to be talking about in this chapter are we're going to be defining small groups and teams, types of teams. You'd be surprised how many are out there. Their group needs, which include task needs, procedural needs, social needs, individual needs, all these needs. And then we're going to talk about leadership, rules, norms, consensus, which is voting, and of course, finally, reporting the final product. So we have a lot to discuss, and hopefully it won't take too long. Here we go. All right, so what is a group or a team? Well, it's usually 3 to 12 people, not usually more because it gets a little too unwieldy. Less than 3, of course, is a dyad, so that's not a small group. And whether it's a group or a team depends on its purpose. Like a team is put together for a common goal overall. Think of a surgical team, an advertising team, a team of lawyers, etc. They have a long-term goal that they're working with, maybe a client or a concept or something like that, scientific teams. Groups are usually brought together for maybe a short term, it could be long term, but it's not quite the same. And they're usually for a single project or just a couple of projects. They're not considered really long term. Okay, but group work is unavoidable. We already know it's going to happen. I don't care what job you get into, you will be working with other people and you're going to be thrown together in ways to work together. And of the organizations researched by several research facilities, they discovered that over 86% of organizations attribute workplace failure to poor teamwork. That could be as simple as the boss and the team aren't communicating well, or one person is trying to do the work of all the team, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You get the point. You also need to know that in many workplaces, when they're doing their initial interviews, they value teamwork abilities over creativity and intelligence in the independent worker. Isn't that something? They would rather you work together as a team rather than be this wonderful, unique you can be. So the best thing, of course, would be to be both. Be creative, be unique, be individual, and intelligent, but also be able to work with the team. Now, there are these different types of teams that we're looking at, or groups. We've got problem-solving groups, social groups, study groups, therapy groups, focus groups. Okay, these are all different types of groups. A problem-solving group is similar to a group put together for a single project. For example, when NASA was trying to figure out the math when they had to send a first rocket into space, they had a problem-solving group. First, let's find out what the parameters of the problem are and let's work on this. Okay, you have a problem to solve, you have a debate that you have to find information for, and you have to problem solve how to put together the document, who's going to format it, how is it going to be formatted, and what information needs to be added, etc., etc. You get the point. A social group, we all know what those are. Those are usually for social activities. Okay, you've got teams, baseball teams, basketball teams, you've got clubs, you've got a social group of people that you hang out with, you've got all kinds of different social groups involved. Now, at work, you can still have also your social group. For example, anytime you are in an organization, you're going to have your people that you can go to for different purposes, but then you have the people that you hang out with, you gossip with, you talk to. You share stories with, you share your cat pictures and your dog pictures. That's your social group. Okay, your study group is the people who obviously come together to study. And these are a valuable resource. You never know what you're going to find in these study groups. Therapy groups are a common type of group. These are like AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, NA, Narcotics Anonymous, Al-Anon, these types of therapies. But then you also have therapy groups for every other pretty much psychological or mental issue that you may have. I know that there are depression therapy groups. I know that there are anxiety therapy groups. You can find a therapy group for just about any issue you have. And then focus groups. Focus groups are people put together to study something, to examine it, and then give a response. When they say 4 out of 5 dentists say, okay, they actually bring in 5 dentists and they talk to them and they give them the product and then they ask for their input. That's a focus group. Now, is that always accurate? I don't know. I do know the most fun focus groups I've ever had to or gotten to participate in. I was not working with, but I volunteered to help a toy company. They were developing toys and I had 2 kids. So my kids would go in and they would play with the toys and they would tell me what they thought of the toys and I would tell the company. And the kids had a blast. That would be a focus group. Okay, so when we have groups that we put together, then we are going to have certain things that we have to get done in each group. And we call those group needs, okay? Group needs include the tasks, the actual problem that you have to deal with, whatever the particular assignment is. Your task this week is to do this, all right? Then you have the procedures that you have to follow and the different things involved. I mean, like in a task, you might have a person who is just the diagnoser. They're looking at it and saying, okay, so we have this amount of information, but we don't have enough information on this piece or that piece. Then you have the questioner. They always ask questions. So tell me how this is done. Tell me how to get this done, and or how to accomplish this goal, or how to do anything. Here's something I've learned, and 29 years. This is absolutely true. If one person actually speaks up and asks the question, there were at least 3 more in the room wondering the same piece of information. They just didn't have the gumption to speak up, okay? So you're going to have your task needs, your procedural needs, your social needs, because, even in a group, you still have to have that social aspect, and your individual needs. So let's first look at task needs. Now, task needs are usually the absolute pieces that have to be done. And one way to analyze that process is the reflective thinking method. It should be purple and bold and underlined. Please take note, it should be bold and purple and underlined. Okay, but in the reflective thinking method, it's a formula, if you will, for establishing what needs to happen with whatever task. For example, and I'm going to use the group project this semester, which is a debate, but also an annotated bibliography. Okay, so define the problem. Number 1, define the problem. As a group, defining the problem, we know that every single individual is responsible for 3 sources overall, with 3 annotations per source overall, that we have to create a document that combines everybody's information onto one document. We know that the document has to be alphabetized and all that kind of stuff, but that's for later. So this is what we have to put together, this document. That's our problem. And our document has to be focused on this topic, whatever your topic may be. Okay, then you analyze the problem. This is where you look at the different pieces of the problem that you have to deal with. That's where you're going to look at, okay, it has to be on MLA formatted, works cited page, and the title can be annotated bibliography. What do we put for the heading? Oh my gosh, there's like several of us. We don't want to put all our names, but you do have to put all your names. Okay, but the running head, that's too long to put all their names. So what are we going to do there? Should we just put the team name? Oh, that's an idea. Team A for the running head. You're figuring out all the pieces that need to be involved. So every citation has to have an annotation underneath it that explains what's going on in that citation and why it's useful for the debate. And everybody has to do this. Okay, so there you go. Analyzing the problem. Then you have to establish the criteria for the solutions. What is the criteria? What is it supposed to look like? What is it supposed to work like? If in our group project, what is the criteria for solutions? Well, okay, you already know that to establish criteria means to identify every element and put together possible solutions. Well, in this case, the solution is the only way to go. You only have one final product available to you, so we have to establish the criteria to achieve that final product. Then you can generate your potential solutions, because what if you're not working on this? What if you're working on something else? You know, you might have several different options that you can take. And then 5, you select the best solution. Okay, once you've done all of that, take action. Now, procedural needs are a little bit different. They're the things that lead up to, okay, the group and the task needs. These are routine actions, things you have to do just to conduct group business. Defining interaction criteria. As groups, you had to decide how were you going to contact each other, how were you going to stay in contact, and then, you know, and who was kind of leading that process. That would be determining the leadership. Scheduling meetings and planning events. Who is deciding when everything is going to be due? Who is going to decide when certain aspects have to be submitted? Is somebody going to be taking it over to the tutoring center, the learning lab? If so, then they have to have a date for everything to be submitted, etc. Setting the agenda. If you are going to go meet as a group, somebody has to say, okay, we need to know how we're going to talk about this and what we're going to talk about. In big meetings, they set an agenda that can potentially be 10, 20 pieces long. And I know for every faculty meeting, I get an agenda in advance that tells me the talking points that we're going to be going over. Planning events. Are you going to get together afterwards and have a pizza? Okay. And then somebody has to keep track of attendance. Now, in a faculty meeting, they keep track of who's there and who's not. At work, they keep track of who's there and who's not. So if your team is meeting and one person is absent, that needs to be accounted for. And then, of course, tracking discussions and the decisions made. Now, your group may not have as much information on that. You may not need it as much. But I know, for example, that some of the committee meetings that I go to, someone is going to take notes of the entire discussion, and then they're going to type up those notes later, and that's called the minutes. And before the next meeting, we'll all read the minutes and make sure that, because it keeps track of every minute of the meeting, and we're going to read the minutes, and we're going to say, okay, all right, I'm caught up. You go to Congress, they're going to read the minutes of the meetings. All right, you can look anywhere. And so those are just procedural needs. Then you have your social needs. It's the social dynamics involved in any group activity, because the members of the group have to feel cohesive. They have to feel part of the group, and they have to maintain those relationships. So usually there's one person that kind of takes on the social, cruise director role. My dad calls my mom the cruise director. But you're going to have someone who is kind of keeping an eye on these things. Usually it's the leader of the group that kind of maintains the relationships. If they notice that two people aren't getting along, they're going to be the ones to initiate contact to try to make things work out, to foster positive relationships, address any concerns and conflicts. And, this is where you get your leader or moderator usually take hold. Now, here's the thing, though. In the social needs section, any person in the group needs to be ready to take on that role just in case, because you just never know what's going to happen. And this is an interesting piece, and I thought it was good to know. We know that teamwork, group work, y'all's are kind of the same thing in this case. 45% of the project is individual. That's where you're doing your individual citations and your annotations. 45% is the team, where everybody puts things together, alphabetizes it. You're looking at each other's work. You're helping each other make your paragraphs better, making suggestions for citations, etc. And then there's going to be 10% social. I have no doubt when people get together, they are not just going to sit there and talk about the project and nothing else. They are going to talk about other things. You are going to do other things. You might even decide to take the whole group over. Oh, we don't have a pool table anymore, do we, in the student center because everything's in flex. But you have those social aspects as well. Now, individual needs are just as important, though, because every member of the group needs to feel accepted by the group. And if one person is not feeling accepted, the leader needs to take hold and say, okay, how can we fix this? All right. Social needs also foster understanding. And we're talking about social needs, say at work. We're not just talking about, going out for drinks after work, although that could be part of it, but it could be group gatherings. I know that every now and then at my last school that I taught at, we would have a luncheon and everyone would make something. It was potluck and everybody would make something and would all plan to meet in a certain location and would share our foods and have conversations. And we're not talking about work, we're just enjoying the moment. Every group needs those moments to just share the moment. It helps maintain relationships, and it fosters that understanding, those social needs, that understanding between each other, and helps people work better together. But when you have these social things, you need to remember that you need clear structure and expectations. So in individual needs, I can't do my job if I don't know exactly what I need to do. You can't just tell me, okay, you go work on that part of the project, and then not tell me any details about what is needed in that part of the project. Okay, so we have to be able to work independently, but we also need guidance with that independence when it's a group activity. All right, so we've talked about all those things, and you notice I kept bringing up leaders, how the leader has to kind of take hold sometimes and make things happen. Well, let's talk about leaders. There are 3 different kinds that we're looking at. One is the designated leader. This would be, say, if I told your group, okay, here, group A, I don't know who you are, but you are team A, which I told everybody their team letter designations because I'm creative. And so will be the leader. Now, I did not do that, did I? No. I wanted you to choose a leader. But if I had appointed someone, that would be a designated leader. And they can be chosen for various reasons. They could be chosen because they know more about the topic than anybody else. They could be chosen just because they have transformational leadership skills, which we're not getting into, but because they're really good with people. There are various reasons a person could be designated a leader. Then you have the implied leader. This is the person who kind of just everybody looks at and says, okay, we're going to get you to tell us what to do. And so if you get a group of people together and you give them a project, if everybody kind of leans towards one individual, and it could be, again, for various reasons. It could be because they know more about it than anyone else, or it could be that they're just, they have a charismatic personality and everybody wants to be a part of it. It could be that they're well-known, very popular. It could be anything. But the implied leader is the one that just everybody kind of looks to. It's not really set. It's not designated. It's just what happens. And then the emergent leader. At the end of the project, who ended up being the leader? The person who says, you know what, nothing's getting done. I'm taking over now. Or the person who says, okay, they didn't tell us who was doing what, so I'm going to go ahead and set it out so that we have some organization here. Okay, the emergent leader just kind of sets the ground rules. That's not a bad thing. It means that somebody recognizes the need and they step up to that role. Now, group rules are usually set by the leadership. Not always. It could be in conjunction with what the group wants, but the leadership will be the one to finally set those rules. We have ground rules, norms, consensus, and reporting. So these are the things we're going to talk about in this section. Ground rules. Ground rules are explicitly stated expectations. What is the ground rule for your groups. Have you decided how you are communicating? Okay, if you're using, say you're using, I don't know what you're using, but say you are using a text thread and everybody is in a group text. And so, this was somehow explicitly stated, okay, we are going to talk in this group. Here's how we're going to communicate. Or what if you have teams and you're saying, okay, or group meet on Google, they have group meet. Okay, let's meet by group meet at such and such time. It's explicitly stated. Now, it's helpful to have these rules when members act outside the interest of the group, because if somebody acts outside the interest of the group, you can say, look, we agreed we were going to meet on group meet at such and such time. It's not our fault you were not there. When we were there, we discussed what we were going to do. You had to be there. We have ground rules for meeting times, attendance requirements, discussion expectations, all of these things. But beware of those with a hidden agenda. A hidden agenda is a problem when you have one person who, say, joins a group or joins a team, and they only join the team because they want something. That's not part of the stated goal of the group. So say you join, this is a great example. Say you're a federal agent. Okay, it's silly, I know, but it works. And then you had somebody who applied to your agency. They went through all the training. They're doing a great job. They join your team. Say you're, okay, I just went into criminal minds mode. Say you're the BAU. And then you find out later that they only joined the team so they could get information about certain people in the group and that they're reporting to someone else. They're a spy. Okay, that would be an example, an exaggerated example of a hidden agenda. Spies. Okay, I need to, we watched way too much TV yesterday. All right, groupthink is a problem though, and it's something that you have to be aware of when you are in a group project or group environment. Groupthink, you can think in terms of a mob mentality, okay? One person's personality can overshadow the entire group and can lead to decisions that are not in the group's interests. So we're going to do that, right? We're going to do this. We're going to do this over here. Yeah, everybody agrees. And they just kind of roll over everybody in the group. And everybody just accepts it. And they say, okay, we're a mob. This is what we're doing now. But it can work that it's not in the group's best interest. Groupthink happens. This was a quote, and I put it in the text, and I put it here because I feel like it's important for you to see. Groupthink happens when a group of well-intentioned people makes irrational or non-optimal decisions due to the pressure to conform or to the belief that dissent is impossible. A very basic example of groupthink would be, this is harking back many, many, many years ago, but I was part of a group at a college. We were a study group. We got together in the library. We were going to study because we all had this test the next day, and we were going to help each other with the pieces that we didn't understand individually, so we were helping each other. Halfway through, one of the kids kind of, hey, you know what? I totally forgot it's so-and-so's birthday. And we're like, oh, well, we need to do something for them tomorrow after the test. But this person's personality was so strong. We ended up as a group, and I felt like I had to go along because they kind of peer pressure, And I went with them, and we ended up out with this person to celebrate their birthday, which they appreciated, but they didn't. They had the test the next day too. And so none of us did well in that test. We did not do what we needed to do. Yes, going out was fun, but it did not accomplish our goal. It was not in our best interests. Okay, norms are usually not stated outright. These are implicit rules, not explicit, okay? They're general standards for interacting with other people. We already know that there are certain norms that we use. Say you go to the doctor's office, you have to wait in the waiting room. And as you're waiting, you look around the room. You're not going to sit there and get really loud on your phone, I hope. You're not going to sit there and listen to videos at top volume, I hope. If you are not following the norms. It's antisocial behavior. But you're going to sit there and you're going to sit there quietly and you're going to wait. And you don't normally have conversations with other people in the room. But then there's going to be that one person that decides to talk to everybody. They're working outside the norm. Okay. We also have in groups, we have sometimes taking turns when speaking. I saw this one group, they used a ball and they threw it from person to person. And if you didn't have the ball, you weren't allowed to talk. You have norms, things that you've decided, how to vote, or designating one person to summarize what's been said. Okay, you want to summarize that for us, break it down. Norms are standards of behavior that are shared by the group that are usually not explicitly stated. For example, if you are in a study group and you know that you're going to meet at the library, you always go to the second floor, you always go to this certain set of tables, and you know that this one person who comes to join you is always going to be at least 15 minutes late. Okay, those are just norms, expectations, things that you know are going to happen. Now, consensus is when you are coming down to the decision point. You have to decide who wins or what project is going to be the final thing, or what is the final decision on this. Are we done kind of situation? And you have to make a decision. Is it going to be based on majority rule or quorum? Consensus is when you decide this is the final product. So the majority rule, if there are 10 people, and then 6 would be the majority, right? Or what if you decide as a group that, since we're talking about your groups, there's 5 of you. If there's, if all 5 of you decide, that has to be a unanimous decision. But majority would be 3 of you, right? Or what if you say it has to be a quorum, minimum number present? Okay, some places use 1/4, or sorry, 2/3. Okay, 2/3 of the membership has to be present before voting. If 2/3 are not there, you cannot vote. Some organizations use a quorum of a half. Some people use 2/3. One is 3/4. You could use any number you choose. I think in Congress it's a 2/3 quorum, 2/3 of the Senate, 2/3 of the House of Representatives have to be present during a vote in order for the vote to count. And if that quorum is not met, then you can't vote yet, because you've kind of set that in advance and you need to keep to that. Now, you finished your project, you've got everything done, you have to figure out how you are going to report the results of your research or whatever it is you've completed. These are just 3 different ways that you can do it. One is an oral report. Think about this. Every speech that you have to do is an oral report. Okay, you had to do some work, you had to put stuff together. It wasn't a group or a team project, it was just you, but you had to decide how to present it. Oral report. A symposium is when you have different people speaking at different times, like one following another. Okay, and the Lyceum series here at Victoria College, we get speakers who come in. Sometimes we'll have 3 speakers in a year, sometimes we'll have 2, sometimes we'll even just have 1. But if we have more than 1, then that's a symposium, because one person is speaking this day, another person is speaking this day. But you can just follow each other too. A symposium would be one speaker followed by the next speaker, followed by the next speaker, which is why we have to also be careful with times. And then you have, finally, the panel discussion. This is where you have all of the people involved sitting up at the front of the room in chairs or standing, it doesn't matter either way, and they are presenting their findings. One person is going to present, and then another person might add on to that, and then another person might present their information, and this first person may add on to that. and they play off of each other. Okay. I think that was everything for group presentations that we have to worry about. And so there we go. And yes, I don't think I have anything else for you. So there we go. That's the end of chapter 9. Y'all have a great day. Bye.